All right, I'm wearing this hat that somebody that has a very top secret position in the military gave me as a gift, and had to wear this logo because it's appropriate for today. So today is Sunday, Memorial Day 2025. Memorial Day is tomorrow. Getting ready for the Charlotte Motor Speedway to act up in a little bit here, so I got to get this done quick. So I want to share some things. Things are about to get really crazy, and it's going to be terrible for some, which is why I'm wearing this hat. And it's going to be great for others. And we are actually in really biblical times right now. And the things that are about to happen will be the equivalent of the biggest stories in the Bible. Even like Moses leading Israel out of Egypt through the Red Sea. When God opened up the Red Sea for Israel to go through by causing the wind to blow across the Red Sea and make the Red Sea dry ground with walls of water on each side so they could go through. And he put a fog over the Egyptian army that was coming in their chariots and horses. And when he got the Israelites through at night with a guiding light from above, he removed the fog after they were across, and the Egyptian army raced across, Pharaoh's army. And if you know the story, God waited till they were right dead in the sea, in the dry ground, thinking they were going to race right across also. And also God caused their chariot wheels to start coming off, and even the commanders were yelling to each other, you know, their God is fighting against us, we've got to turn back. But it was too late. God caused the water to come crashing down on them, and it destroyed them all. Not one survived, the Bible says. And you can even see online divers who have gone down there and taken video of chariot pieces, chariot wheels. So a lot of people think, oh, I remember hearing that, oh, that was only like ankle deep water. They didn't have any real problem going across. Oh, no, not actually. No, that wouldn't have been it, because how are you going to drown in ankle deep water, you know, or whatever they said, a foot and a half, whatever. So no, that was seriously deep water, and they're about to get into some deep stuff right now. So I want to bring up some things that I've been looking at in the Bible that are very, very interesting. And so I'm going to start with giving you first some background of where we have been right up until now. So I'm going to start in Isaiah, and then I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, all right? Isaiah 59, I'm going to read 3 and 4, verses 3 and 4, talking about the wicked leaders of Israel. God always addresses Israel because that's his chosen nation back then. And he says, your lips have spoken lies, and your tongue mutters wicked things. No one calls for justice. No one pleads his case with integrity. Have we seen that? Have we seen courts corrupt as can be? DAs, prosecutors, judges, even law enforcement, some of them, they're just totally corrupt. Totally corrupt. And we go into verse 6. Their deeds are evil deeds, and acts of violence are in their hands. Their feet rush into sin. They are swift to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are evil thoughts. Ruin and destruction mark their ways. The way of peace they do not know. There is no justice in their paths. They have turned them into crooked roads. No one who walks in them will know peace. So justice is far from us, and righteousness does not reach us. We look for light, but all is darkness. Man, we have seen this for a long time. We look for justice, but find none, for deliverance, but it is far away. So justice is driven back. This is verse 14, Isaiah 59. So justice is driven back, and righteousness stands at a distance. Truth has stumbled in the streets. Honesty cannot enter. Truth is nowhere to be found, and whoever shuns evil becomes a prey. Have we seen people prosecuted who are trying to do what's right? Doggone right we have, and we've been pissed off at that. So that's just part of it. We could talk about the tyranny that we've been under, and it's actually been for many years. I'm going to say literally 100 years. It's just gotten worse and worse. We were on slow boil, but we've been on rapid boil since the Obama-Biden regime, which Obama was really ruling during Biden anyway. So I'm going to touch on a few things here. All right. Let's look at the parallels of what is happening today to the biblical and historical events. All right. So back then, God chose Moses to lead Israel out of enslavement, the enslavement they had in Egypt. That was what I just told, the story of going through the Red Sea, okay? Now, this is what's interesting. Psalm 106, I happen to notice it says, verse 16, this is after Moses takes his people out of Egypt through the Red Sea, and then they're on the other side. Then they start grumbling and complaining, and they're like, who are you? You know, you're nobody. You know, who are you to, you know, say you're going to lead us? We're just as good as you. It says in Psalm 106:16, in the camp, they grew envious of Moses and Aaron, who was consecrated by the Lord. God chose them to lead, right? If you look at Psalm 77:20, I'm going to go there for a second, because I got some notes written down. I'm not exactly organized here, but I got a pretty good idea where I want to go. So Psalm 77:20 says, you led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. That's the last verse of Psalm 77. I have a note here, Exodus 14:31. You could read that too. Exodus is when they left. All right. Now, let me see if that's even something I want to touch on here. 14. Okay, so I guess it's 14 all the way through 31 is what that meant. If you want to read all that, that's all the story. And even, I'm just seeing something here that's pretty interesting. In Exodus 23, verse 20, God says, see, I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. If you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies, and I will oppose those who oppose you. There's more in there, but I'm just touching on that because it does apply to what I'm going to say. So that opposition, anytime somebody's going to be doing something for the Lord, especially big stuff, there's going to be major opposition to that person. And you can look at everybody that God used, everybody in the Bible, there was opposition. There was opposition against Joseph, who led, well, this is before the enslavement in Egypt, but Joseph, who became Pharaoh's #1 man, just under Pharaoh, he was the youngest of his brothers, despised by his brothers, and the whole story of Joseph is how he saved Egypt from 7 years of famine that God showed him were coming up. Pharaoh had the dream. Joseph was in prison for something he didn't do. Joseph revealed the dream, and he had such administrative qualities that Pharaoh put him in charge of everything to keep Egypt from being destroyed by the 7 years of famine, followed from previous 7 years that were going to be abundance. Okay, now, Jesus, of course, he had opposition. Daniel, and I'll touch on that in a minute, but I want to touch on this Numbers 16. Numbers, let me get back to that. All right, Numbers 16. All right, this is talking about what happened. Okay, so all these guys, I'll name some of them, Dathan and Abiram, and it talks about these guys. They rose up against Moses. With them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed by members of the council. They came as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far." All right, I'm not going to get into all the details. You can read it in Numbers chapter 16. And Moses said to them, "Listen to me." And then in verse 11 he says, it is against the Lord that you and all your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron, who was Moses' brother? Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him? But they said, "We will not come," when he asked them to come and meet with him. "Isn't it enough that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey," meaning Egypt? They wanted to go back to Egypt, believe it or not, under slavery, "to kill us in the desert, and now you also want to lord it over us? Moreover, you haven't brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards." They're complaining, right? God just did a mighty miracle, and they're complaining against Moses. Then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not accept their offering. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, nor have I wronged any of them." Do we know a leader right now that is being opposed in our country and his right-hand man? Do we know of anybody like that? I think so. And is he God's chosen man? I am absolutely positive of that. All right, so what's happening? Well, there was this meeting that had to take place, and they said, "Okay, let's get together. Let's see who God chose to lead Israel." And so they go have this meeting in the entire assembly. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, "Move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of all their sins." What's their sin? Opposing God's man, right? Moses and Aaron, God's two men. "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, and it was not my idea." All right, so then, if these men die a natural death and experience only what usually happens to men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt. As soon as he finished saying all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, with their households and all Korah's men and all their possessions. They went down alive to the grave with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us too." Stupid idiots. You didn't get it, right? Then fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were also opposing Moses, led by those other idiots. All right, now, Then there's a part where it says, this was to remind the Israelites that no one except a descendant of Aaron should choose to burn in. Okay, that's a whole different thing. Never mind. The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. You have killed the Lord's people. Oh my gosh. It never stops, right? All right. Then God, because these people were opposing Moses and Aaron again, these idiots, God put to death by the angel of the Lord 14,700 people with a plague. I might not be proper about the angel of the Lord, but it might be in there. But anyway, they were killed. All right, so now I want to bring up another story. By the way, who is opposing our president and his right-hand man, the one who is having his cars scratched, right? I want to bring up another story. In the book of 2 Kings, chapters 18 and 19, Hezekiah was a king of Judah, and he served the Lord wholeheartedly. The Lord was with him. He was successful in whatever he undertook. Now Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked and insulted Hezekiah and the Israelites with threats and asked, how then can the Lord deliver Jerusalem from my hand? After he listed his escapades and all the countries that he already defeated and destroyed their kings and their gods and everything. How then can the Lord deliver Jerusalem from my hand? So in other words, he's opposing the Lord, their God. Hezekiah then seeks the Lord, and Isaiah, the prophet, responds to the officials that Hezekiah sent to him. This is what Hezekiah says to these officials that were sent by King Hezekiah to Isaiah. This is what the Lord says, do not be afraid of what you have heard. Those words which these underlings, I love the way he says that, of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. This is God talking. Okay, that's the word from Isaiah. So God draws the king of Assyria back to fight the Cushites, but God sends a letter promising, or the king says a letter, king of Assyria, promising to return and defeat Judah. Hezekiah prays, now, O Lord our God, deliver us from his hand, so that all kingdoms on earth may know that you alone, O Lord, are God. That's 2 Kings 19, verse 19. Chapter 19, verse 19. So the Lord responds through Isaiah against him. Now, this is what Isaiah says. The virgin daughter of Zion, talking more or less a word to that Assyrian king. The virgin daughter of Zion despises you and mocks you. The daughter of Jerusalem tosses her head as you flee. And then further down, God says this directly to the king of Assyria, Sennacherib. Who is it you have insulted and blasphemed? Against whom have you raised your voice and lifted your eyes in pride? Against the Holy One of Israel. By your messengers you have heaped insults on the Lord. Further down, God says, but I know where you stay and where you come and go, and how you rage against me. Because you rage against me, and your insolence has reached my ears, I will put a hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth, and I will make you to return by the way you came. And then further on in verses 27, 28, more is pronounced against Assyria and for Jerusalem by the Lord, and the final blow to the end of chapter 19. Now, these people that are opposing our president and his people, they are actually opposing God. And many of them actually hate Christians. They hate God. Those who know that God exists, yet they hate him, have an awful judgment about to swat them. I mean, swat them big time. In Psalm 2, 1 through 6. Why do the nations conspire? Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against his anointed one. Let us break their chains, they say, and throw off their fetters. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy hill. Psalm 46:10 says this, Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Let me tell you something. What God's about to do, all the world, all the earth is going to be amazed at what God does. Psalm 105:15. Do not touch my anointed ones. Do my prophets no harm. Those are some notes out of there. Then we're going to go to Daniel. By the way, going back to Psalm 77:20, it says, You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So he uses men to accomplish his will. We didn't vote for a pastor. We didn't vote for, I don't know, a perfect person. We voted for someone who could get the job done, who God has given incredible abilities to deal and make deals and really going after the enemy. And I'll tell you what, if somebody had been trying to kill me numerous times, I would be going after them like David did after his enemies, which I'll touch on that too. Hopefully you'll remember. So God uses men to accomplish his will, and he gives us the privilege of joining him in his work. So are we gonna stand with God's chosen man, or are we gonna complain against his things we don't like, whatever they might be? I know one talk show host in the morning on WBT that is just against Trump all around. I don't know how, being a Christian, you cannot see, and there are other Christians out there. I mean, I don't know how you can't see what Trump is doing compared to these other previous regimes and what he is taking down and defeating so that we can have a better life. I don't know how you can miss it. But this guy on the radio just talks bad about him all the time. He's disgusted with him. Well, tough crap, you know? Tough. Take it. Okay, look at the alternatives. What'd you prefer? The Obama-Biden regime, the Clintons, the Bushes? They're all pedophiles. They're all disgusting. 1 John 3:8. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. What's the devil's work? All those kids being trafficked. People coming across the border to be trafficked. Men, women, and children to be trafficked. Trump is going after the cartels. What did the other ones do? They're all in bed with them, prostituting themselves. Let me put another point here. I don't care who you vote for. No matter if we got everybody we wanted in here who is right on with justice, doing things right. If we had all these righteous people in the government that were honest, filled with integrity, transparency, the devil hasn't left the earth, and all his people are still on the earth. So we're going to be in a battle until Jesus returns. So I'm going to be part of the opposition to the devil, not the opposition to God's chosen man. Now there's another guy I want to touch on, and that would be Daniel. In Daniel chapter 6, King Darius planned on setting Daniel over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators of King Darius. Now, Daniel was one of the Jews that was brought to King Darius. What was he in? Chaldeans, Syrians. What was it? Anyway, I can't believe I don't remember. But anyway, so Daniel was one of the Israelite prisoners that was brought to that country, and they chose all the brightest of them to train them in their ways. They made them eunuchs, and they said, okay, we're going to train these guys, and they changed their names to take away their identity. Daniel was obviously well gifted by God in administration and other things. So at this, the administrators and satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to. Russia, Russia, Russia. So many other lawsuits against Trump. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. There was a interview that I saw with Michael Franzese, that's F-R-A-N-Z-E-S-E, and another guy that was in the mafia. Both of those guys were big mafia bosses. And Valuetainment was the YouTube channel that I watched. And one of the things one of the guys brought up was, you know, we could buy all the politicians we wanted and anybody in business, whatever. We could bribe anybody. He said, we went to Trump and we tried to bribe him. He said, he is the only one we could not bribe. And he said, we've never had anybody we couldn't bribe with enough money. Trump would not take the bribe. What a man. Love that man. And so these satraps and administrators, when they found no way to bring up anything against Daniel, they connived, conspiracy, to come up with new laws that they could trap him and bring about his death. Ultimately, Daniel received the sentence to go to the lion's den, and I'm just paraphrasing here, I'm just, making it concise. But he feared not and held his ground. Because Daniel was innocent and stood strong, God came through strong and delivered him from the lion's den. All right, boomerang time. Then the king sentenced the evil accusers and plotters to the same death in the lion's den along with their families. Sound familiar? Now we go to Esther. The book of Esther is fantastic. A very short book in the Bible. God is not mentioned once, and that's on purpose because the book of Esther is basically to show that even if people don't see or mention God, he's behind the scenes working. And if you want to read an interesting story, that book of Esther is fantastic. So the basic premise or beginning here is Esther was a Jewess and her mother and father died, so her uncle Mordecai took her in and took care of her, and she grew up. The king, Xerxes, had a wild party and he wanted his wife to come out with showing off her beauty. She refused to do it. Some people say that what he really wanted her to do was come out naked and show off her beauty, but whatever. She refused to do it, and the king was very, very angry, and his advisors said, if you let her not, if you don't punish her, all the women in the land are going to say they don't have to honor their husbands or listen to what they say, and we'll be in big doo-doo. So he put her away in a tower or whatever, and they said, hey, you should, because you're going to be lonely, you should try to find the most beautiful woman in your kingdom and then marry her. So the king sent his men out, find the most beautiful women, and they brought them into this palace, and they were given all the beauty treatments and all the advice and training, and Esther listened to the guy that was a eunuch that was in charge of her, and she found favor with him. Another move of God, right? And she became the queen. And at one point, her uncle Mordecai, being a Jew, used to hang out at the palace courtyard, just to hear how she's doing. Well, there was this guy that was pretty much second in command under the king, or he was one of the king's big men. His name was Haman, Haman. And Haman, how did it go? There was something where all the people were told to bow down whenever Haman came by. Well, Mordecai was like, I'm not bowing to any man. I'm not going to comply. Does that sound familiar? It does to me. So Haman was very, very upset that Mordecai would not comply and bow down to him. And he found out he was a Jew. So he went to the king and he said, there's a people that live among us, and they're not like the rest. They don't believe in our gods, and they're not good for us. We need to wipe them all out. The king said, okay, well, go ahead, do it. So Haman had planned on killing all the Jews. Mordecai found out about it, and Mordecai sent word to Esther, you have got to talk to the king about this. And that's, a pretty good part of the story there. So what ended up happening, I'm not going to tell you all the details because it's a great story, but Esther finally, she asked everyone to fast, and I don't know if she said pray, but fast. And she set up, first she was very fearful, and you'll read why in the book, but she set up a banquet for Haman only. Haman was like, wow, I'm the only one that's invited by the queen. I'm really something special. This is going to be great. He went to his family and friends, and they were all, he was boasting about everything he had and did, and he was just a very boastful man. And but he said, with all that I got, I just can't stand this Mordecai. It just really irks me, And they said, hey, why don't you build a gallows 70 feet tall and hang him on it? He said, that's a great idea. So he had his guys build this gallows 70 feet high. And so then the whole tables turned on Haman in this trap that is amazing, an amazing trap. And Haman ended up getting hung on the gallows that he built for Mordecai. That's what I call another boomerang incident, just like the Egyptian army going after Israel, and just like the lion's den with the satraps and administrators all getting their boomerang deal. And so the Jewish feast of Purim is the one that is in memory of this whole thing with Haman. So a lot of times I post a statement in regard to a relative post, and I'll say, time to initiate Operation Mordecai / Haman into full swing. And that's referring to this. Yeah, it's time. It's time for this to happen. Gitmo is an interesting story. I'm going to say something about Gitmo. You know how Trump, let me change it first. Gitmo in the early days had a Marine barracks, and the Marines they nicknamed it the YMCA. So Trump, being who he is, why do you think at his rallies he plays that song YMCA? Yeah. Yep. Gitmo is about to get pretty busy, and it's busy right now actually. So David, where is that psalm that I wanted to say about David crushing his enemies? I do want to read in the book of Esther. There's the last part of the book of Esther is really good. Why? Because Mordecai, who was about to have his neck put in a noose, actually ended up, just like Joseph, who was in prison, becoming second in command to where is Esther? Maybe I even put it down here. Yeah, I did. Okay, I wrote it down. The last verses in the book of Esther. Yeah, he was put in second in rank to King Xerxes, preeminent among the Jews and held in high esteem by his many fellow Jews because he worked for the good of his people and spoke up for their welfare of all the Jews. We have a president now that is speaking up for our welfare. No other president. Reagan did good. Okay, there were only 3 good presidents recently in my lifetime. JFK, who planned on taking down the CIA and all these secret societies that he mentioned in his speech, and that's why he was taken out. Reagan was not a compliant guy with the deep state, and they actually tried to take him out, but he realized how close he came to death after that incident, and he was kind of laid back a little bit more after that. But Trump is going to be taking on the work that JFK intended to do, but they took him out. And that's why they're trying to take him out, Donald Trump. If you look at what Trump is really doing, it's monumental. He is taking down the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Big Pharma. He's curtailing the military-industrial complex from creating endless wars so they can make all kinds of money, which is in the back pockets of these politicians. And the politicians are also in the pockets of the cartels, the big drug, big pharma, big food, all this. I mean, there is so much corruption, and what Elon Musk has been uncovering is nowhere near the beginning. It is teeny compared to what has to be exposed. And Julian Assange said, if I let out everything I know, 98% of the government is going down. You want to know why people are not being arrested right now fully in the government? Because once it starts, the whole damn government's going down. And what's going to happen is there has to be people to take their place pretty much immediately. And that's what I believe is going on now with the convention of states in these other states. They're setting up another replacement government so that when these fools go down, and it will be 98% of the government, because they're all corrupt, just about all of them. There's a few that aren't. Okay, so I think I've touched on everything. One thing I will say is, right now, if you're part of the deep state, if you've worked for these people like the witch Hillary, the pile of offensive Pelosi, if you've worked for this Schiff face, and these despicable child traffickers, and you have done very dirty deeds, it's time to come clean. And you want to be a whistleblower, now's the time. Last chance. It's last chance. Time to turn evidence. And more than anything else, in light of making things right, this is your last chance, man. Turn to Jesus for salvation, because what's about to happen is going to be horrendous. It's going to be, I believe there's going to be things that are going to happen that only God will get the glory for. Only God will get the credit for. These things that happen in the Bible, there's many, many more stories just like what I've shared here. Many more. And man, you got to read the Bible. Just start reading it. Read 2 Kings, 1 and 2 Kings, 1 and 2 Chronicles, parallel books. Read Esther. I'm trying to keep it simple, but read the book of Psalms and Proverbs and find out what God's ways are. He is about to show the whole world just how almighty he is. And when you look at what the Bible says about what's going to happen to these traitors, Psalm 59:5, what does it say? Show no mercy to wicked traitors. No, it's not going to be mercy. It's going to be judgment, big time judgment. And these people that have done these terrible things that I won't even mention, but I've seen the dark stuff. I've seen some of the dark stuff, I'm going to put it that way. And I've heard the details of much darker stuff. Can't mention it here at all, but the world has no clue, most people. And these people deserve the most brutal sentencing available, but they're probably going to get an easy out, meaning, you know, electric chair, hanging, whatever, firing squad, whatever. That's really too lenient. Bill Gates is another disgusting individual. I don't know if you know it, but he tested for his own fun. He wanted to see how long it would take little beagle puppies with their heads encased in a plexiglass cage with a net over their face with flesh-eating flies. How long did it take for them to die? This is this despicable stuff that this guy is the one that's putting these jabs around the world that he boasts will take out a good part of the population and also cause the females to not be able to have babies. Touching on other things, the abortion industry is so far worse than you can even imagine on what they actually do. These are the things that God is using Trump to take down. And these wicked families that are called the cabal, another time I can get into the details, man. You have no clue the amazing things that Trump has been doing to take these people down. And it is by God's mighty hand. So that's it. I'm going to end the video. And hopefully you got something out of that.